welcome back, everybody. Jon Harris here, and I have the privilege of sharing some time today with Dr. Richard Downs, who's a longtime, how would I describe it? Very well renowned in the sleep and chiropractic space of dentistry right now, which we're going to get into quite a bit of detail. I want to kind of walk through his career a little bit, but I'd actually like to I almost forgot about this. I wanted to kind of also get into dentist select and oral care.
Yeah.
Because I just had a conversation about oral care with one of my clients yesterday, and I was like, well, I'm actually going to have Dr. Downs on my podcast tomorrow. And so I'm not familiar with the science, but I know he is. So let me see if I can get some questions answered. So you've had a pretty elaborative career. You kind of, obviously practiced dentistry for quite a while. I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And then it's just evolved from there. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us an idea of like, where everything started, like when you decided to become a dentist, dental school of choice?
That's a good story. I was actually always interested in things that other people thought might have been a little bit tilted. I don't know how you say it. I've been interested in nature and science since I was a little child, but I had trouble learning how to read. In grade school, I was way behind, and my mother eventually sent me to a tutor in summer school, summertime. It was just a private lesson to teach me to read because I was doing very poorly. And this woman, Mrs. Phillips, taught me phonics. And when phonics came into my head and I was able to understand it, she told me I could read, I was very excited. And I still read very slowly. I can't spell at all, but I'm terrible at spelling. But I do. That whole world changed for me when I learned to read. Thank goodness for that, Mrs. Phillips. So that point, but as a child, before grade school, at the age of about 5, I was outside playing on the sidewalk with ants. I have a fascination with ants even to this day. They're very interesting to me. I love entomology and the study of biologies. She walked by with a bunch of clothes to hang on this clothesline, and I asked her, what should I be when I grow up? And she said, she just kind of looked back over her shoulder as she was walking down the sidewalk. She says, well, why don't you be a dentist? I guess we had visited the dentist that week, and so that was the first thing on her mind, but it never left me. It was stuck. Okay. So that, and she doesn't even remember saying it. So imagine that, the things you say to your kids that you don't even remember and the impact that it might have.
That's fascinating to me.
Isn't that fascinating?
Because I say the same thing about my career with Fortune. Everybody asks me how I got into Fortune, and I'll never forget the day I was sitting on Reagan's couch just before she got married. She lived in her old house, and I would come back home from college for the weekend. And I was sitting on the couch one time. We were talking about a book, discussing a book. And I said, is this what you do for a living? I was like 20 years old, 19 years old. I said, is this what you do for a living? She said, what do you mean? I said, you teach people this stuff. And it was a book about like personal development and being proactive and attitude. Right. And she said, well, yeah, more or less. And then the next words out of my mouth were, I have to do that. Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time what I had done, but I had made a declaration that eventually came to fruition.
And when you make it orally like that to another person, it's powerful, isn't it?
It was amazing.
And I tell you what, about the major impacts of things in my life, I'd have to say, of course, my mother would be, and my parents would be number one. My personal relationship with God would be probably the most impactful. And then, of course, Fortune management has been absolutely astounding for my career, and also personal development. It's you can't, if you're trying to describe Fortune management to somebody as a practice management company, that is just way short of what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. I just
True.
had a call. I'm one of our coach trainers nationally.
Yeah.
And I just had a call before you and I jumped on with one of our newer coaches, and she was working on her elevator pitch.
Right.
She was like, well, how do you do this? And I said, well, not trying to tell you what to believe or anything, but I said, I asked her what wisdom was.
Yeah.
And she kind of said it's, being smart, typical, wisdom answer. And I said, actually, wisdom is the ability to take something very complex and articulate it in a way that's understandable to your normal average person. Yeah. And I said, one of the greatest examples of that in history, in my opinion, is Jesus.
Yes.
Because he taught in parables. He'd tell you, like, you'd ask him a question, he'd tell you a story. He didn't give you a long, drawn out scientific answer. And so,
and the brilliance of that is absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding.
But she was asking me, she's like, she was trying to develop her elevator pitch. And I said, listen, if you go up to a dentist and you say, they ask you what you do and you say, oh, I'm a practice management coach, or I'm a practice management consultant. I said, they already know what that is. You just put yourself in the bucket with everybody else in the industry. Right. And it's like, okay, well, I know what that is. I don't have any questions for you.
Yeah.
Right. But if you say I'm a personal development coach, now it's kind of like, okay, personal development, that's different. Tell me more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I told her, I said, you don't take my word for it, but in the time that I've been doing this, I would say really only about 10 or 15% of my time is spent consulting, like telling people, what adjustments to make to a system or how to get a better result. I said 80 to 85% of the time of my time is spent developing people, developing leaders, communication skills. Right. That's where the real magic happens, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I tell you what, OraCare would not exist without Fortune Management, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dr. Martino, back in 2011, asked me to speak on a subject down at the Breakers at a Platinum Circle meeting. And he said, what would you like to talk about? I said, why don't you let me lecture on bad breath? He laughed. He said, bad breath? I said, yeah. I said, you wouldn't know how important that is until I give you the lecture, because I'm very deep into the science around cytokine storms, cytokine cascades, what VOCs do, and how it affects the four major classes of cytokines, and where it leads to bone loss and attachment loss, and matrix metalloproteinases and what it does for the periodontium. I'm actually more knowledgeable about that than maybe the subject of sleep medicine that we're going to talk about today, although I'm rapidly learning my trade even better in that field as well. But anyway, I progressed through school. I moved from a small 300 population town to a 20,000 member town. Went through sports in gymnastics. I spent most all of my time in gymnastics, and then I went on to college. And even then in high school, I was told that I shouldn't be going to college. I wasn't smart enough by my counselor. That's because I read so slowly. I couldn't get through a test without it being incomplete. Okay. And they put a lot of emphasis on speed in math and reading and stuff. I think it's a wrong emphasis. And so even Stephen Hawking, who I had one of his books that I never got through because I couldn't understand it all. I think he probably has more books sold that nobody's read than anybody on earth. Mm-hmm. But he said in his book that he was a very slow thinker. I felt very encouraged by that, because if Stephen Hawking was a slow thinker and one of the most brilliant people that ever lived, I felt a little bit better about maybe I could plod along and do something with my life. Mm-hmm. And I have. So that's where I'm
very
at.
Good. And you're in, I know I'm going to get this wrong, Idaho?
I'm in Iowa.
Iowa. I knew it was started with Iowa.
Everybody gets Idaho. They say, "Oh, you're from Iowa. Is that where they grow the potatoes?" No.
What do they grow in Iowa?
A lot of corn and a lot of hogs. We have a lot of swine and hogs. And Iowa beef is renowned for its taste and quality. From, if you know of Omaha steaks, you can figure out what an Iowa steak tastes like.
I've probably got 6 or 7 pounds of Omaha steaks in my freezer.
Yeah. Tell you what, they're amazing.
So, okay. So fast forward through high school.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the path to becoming a dentist. This is sticking with you this entire time. What was your school of choice? Where did you go to dental school?
Oh, I started out at a community college with a scholarship in chemistry, and then moved on to University of Iowa, completed my BS degree at Iowa, and then went on to Iowa Dental School and completed that in 1975.
Okay, interesting. Are there a lot of, typically one of the things that you see a lot of is there's a vast accumulation of dental practices within close proximity of the dental school. Is that the case in Iowa? A lot of dental practices?
I don't think, there's a number of dentists in Iowa City, but I wouldn't say it's overly populated with dentists. No, I wouldn't think so. Might be different from other places in the world.
Right.
In Iowa City, I don't think so.
I gotcha. And then, so did you spend any time with, I had this debate with people all the time about corporate DSOs and private practice. What's the best path, for a young dentist to pursue?
I don't think DSOs are, some of them are good, some of them are bad. I think a lot of dentists because I just retired about 9 weeks ago, John. Mm-hmm. From my practice. I practiced 42 years in Dubuque, Iowa. And we had a Aspen Dental actually literally build an office right beside us. It was like, it's less than 300 feet away. Mm-hmm. Okay? Best thing that ever happened in my practice. Okay. Because, one of their dentists came over and asked for a job. Patients come over regularly from Aspen Dental to my practice and asked to be treated. Because they're actually more expensive than we are. And after you get through the initial offer where they talk about their cheap $250 denture, they find out that that's really a misleading. Mm-hmm. Okay, I should say that. And so they come over and they have their treatment at our office. So it hasn't hurt me at all. I don't think there's bad DSOs. If you look at Dr. Martino's group, I think that is an excellent DSO. And I think if you model your DSOs after the way Dr. Martino does it with excellence in mind, they can be very, very, very good places to get treatment and to work.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with who he's referring to, Dr. Bob Martino is the largest provider of dental services in the state of West Virginia.
And he's also an absolute genius business mind. If you want to learn how to do DSOs, I would talk to Bob, but he's the CEO of OraCare. The company that we founded, and I would never attempt to be the CEO of that company. I would run it into the ground. It's just not my skill level.
Right, and I think so. From my perspective, I think DSOs, corporate DSOs, even the poorly run ones, I think they serve a very valuable role in the industry because, and this is, I think, where my opinion might be a little controversial. Dentists as a whole, as a group, aren't the best leaders. They're not the best business people out there. There is a percentage of them that are very good, right? But just from my experience, their personality style is not really consistent with being a CEO, their communication style, their leadership style. No. And so the problem is that when a dentist graduates dental school, one of the things that they need earlier in their career is a lot of direction. Yeah. Right. And most dentists aren't really directive style leaders. They're supportive style leaders. Yeah. And so I think that would slow a young dentist's, progress down. So I think when they go to corporate dentistry is great at like structure and direction and telling you what to do. And right. So they give them a lot of direction early on, help them develop, help them gain speed. Yeah. Right. And then when they get fast enough and they say, well, now I want some clinical autonomy. I want I want to be able to express my clinical judgment, because that's what really differentiates one clinician from another is their clinical judgment. Right. And and their bedside manner and their ability to develop relationships with patients. But then they, go to private practice. And so I do have a couple of clients right now that are recent graduates that came straight out of dental school and going right into starting up. And so they're starting. Actually, one of them is acquiring and one of them is starting up. Mm-hmm. But did you go into corporate dentistry out of dental school? Did you start a practice, acquire a practice?
You could say I went into corporate dentistry in a way because I went into the Navy for 3 years. Okay. So I was an employee in the Navy, Great Lakes. And during the Vietnam War, I was still seeing a lot of draftees at that time. I was put into charge of certain departments like oral surgery and periodontology and different types of part. There was no thing like orthodontics, and there's no children's dentistry, but I got good rotations through most all of the specialties like endodontics, periodontics, and oral surgery. And I got really skillful and good at doing general dentistry in the Navy. Then I went into private practice in Dubuque. I never went from there to an actual DSO. Okay.
I totally agree with your comment or your experience with Aspen opening up next door. Because I had the gym that I train at here locally. There was a Planet Fitness that opened up several years ago, and the previous owner, right after Planet Fitness opened up, he sold the gym. And when I asked the owner, I said, "Hey, how are you guys doing with Planet Fitness opening up?" And he said, and this isn't a knock on Planet Fitness, but he said, he goes, "Man, it was the best thing that could have happened to us." And I was like, "Really? How so?" And he says, "Well, Planet Fitness gets people off the couch with that $10 a month, deal. They get into a gym, and then when they start getting results, then they come over to a real gym."
There you go.
I was like, "That's an interesting way of looking at it."
Yeah. I don't see. I think they fill a niche, just like all businesses, and competition is good in a capitalistic society. That's what you want.
Totally agree.
There's nothing to be afraid of. Even the number of dentists, you really, your success depends on what you learn about yourself and how you interact with people. Your people skills are really paramount, and that's why Fortune is so good.
Very good. Did you start your practice as Abident Family Dentistry? Is that correct?
Not right away, but very, very early on. Since I'm a Christian, I was looking for a way. Okay, when I came to town, there was a realtor who took me in, a wonderful man who helped me find my first home, helped me get started, even guaranteed my loan, as a matter of fact. And he had a realty company called Abba Realty. Okay. And it was because he honored God. Abba is the name of God the Father.
Right.
And so, and it's kind of like saying daddy. It's a very endearing term.
Right.
It's something that you would say only if you were an actual son or daughter of a person. And so I wanted to honor God in my name. So I did it with the name Abident. And it has been good because now I have 5 dentists in my office. It's grown to a 10,000 square foot place. It's now owned by 2 other individuals and is transitioned beautifully. It is the largest practice in my community and does the best treatment, in my opinion, of any place in a region.
Interesting. I did not know the backstory behind. I knew that obviously I've seen you worked with Paul for many years, correct?
Yeah, Paul Bass was my
company. And so I had seen, when I came over to Fortune, I had seen your file that said Dr. Rick Downs, Avident Family Dentistry. And I was like, I was always curious where the name came from. And now here it is 10, 11 years later, and I'm just now learning, where the name came from. So that's interesting. I'm glad, I'm happy to know the backstory of that now.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Very good.
Very good.
Cool. So, okay. So it was a startup?
I started out from scratch. Yeah. I did not buy a practice. Just put out my shingle and got huge loans. I had paid off most of my student loans in the Navy. I put my very big focus on paying off my student loans and did so. By the time I got to Dubuque, I was pretty much debt free. And then I went right back into debt with the house and the practice all at once.
Mm-hmm. I bet that was fun.
It was scary. You know, they gave me 6 months of working capital to live on, to eat. And by the time I was sweating that 6 months, thinking, oh boy, I hope I make enough money by the 6 months come around. I can service these notes. Right. I remember, you know, even after that 6 months, putting carpet on layaway because we, you know, if we wanted a new piece of furniture or carpet, we didn't want to go into debt. So
right.
we put it on layaway until we paid it off, and then we'd put it in.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Did you? What was I going to ask? How far was it into practice when you decided to contact Fortune and bring Paul in?
I saw an advertisement by Quest. Quest was before we used to be called Quest, and it was started by Gary McLeod and Ron McConnell. And so they had a little introductory meeting in Davenport, which is about 90 miles south of me. I went down there to that meeting to see what they did. And it was a lot about relationship building and team building and what it means to be have the proper mindset. I was absolutely immediately struck by what I saw. I thought that this was really the right way to go. So I joined Quest, and I did a lot of work with Quest. At that time, they did a lot of work with a company called Landmark Education, which is an outgrowth of EST. It's kind of I'd say it's not a religious organization in the sense that it's Christian, but they did have principles that I thought were appropriate. Some things that I didn't agree with, other things. And that's been true of everything I learned. You reject what you don't like and add to what you do like, add to your worldview. But I got a lot of worth out of that. And as a matter of fact, Paul Bass was in Quest, and he attended the same initial four trainings that we have now. As a matter of fact, my wife became a person who set up the trainings for Tony Robbins early on. Most of those initial seminars that you see, you'll find me on those. Fortune Management. I think there are 4 of them. What are they called?
The original Tony DVDs.
DVDs, yeah. You'll see me in there in the audience. But Paul early on wanted to become a national leader and speaker and franchise owner with Quest. And he took right off with it. I stayed in practice, and I was asked to be a coach for Quest. And I did some work, but I never did buy a franchise. Okay.
So were you so Paul tells a story of when he brought Tony in for the first time, and
I was there.
He went to 50 of his clients, said, give me $1,000. I'm going to pay to bring this guy in.
He didn't borrow, he didn't get any money from me, but I did go to Hawaii to the initial meeting with Tony Robbins. We sat in a large meeting, and we came up with, I helped determine the name Fortune Management with Tony Robbins. I was there when Fortune Management was born. Okay. I'm as old as the earth cooling. Okay.
Well, I can speak from just personal gratitude for the time that you guys spent in that room creating this company, because it's paid my bills for the last decade.
You're welcome.
And it has truly become a career. I had a lot of success with FedEx early on, and I got comfortable. I was making really good money. I knew what I was doing. I was, progressing very quickly through the structure there. And I had made that declaration to come over to Fortune when I was probably 19 or 20. And Reagan and I have always been very close, and we were trying to position the franchises that she owned in a way that would allow me to step out of a salary and into income.
Yeah.
Right. And long story short, that never happened. And so I stepped into nothing and had to build my book of business from scratch, which was an extremely difficult and depressing period in my life,
Right.
but a period that I'm probably more grateful for than any other period, because it's greatly contributed to the person that I've become. And for what Fortune's done for me personally and applying, the things that we teach in my personal life, it is very much responsible for who I am now. And I'm very happy to be who I am now.
Yeah, that's great. When Fortune took over from Quest, they took a lot of the technology from Quest and made it better. Tony made it better. For instance, the communication process in Quest was very rigid and kind of cold, and Tony transformed it into a communication process that was elegant, caring, and more effective, much more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so Quest or Fortune was born. You became a client of Fortune after that for a period of time, and then you said you 1985. Okay,
Yeah.
I was to give you an idea. I was born in '83.
Yeah.
Just turned 30. Just turned 38. I think.
Yeah.
38. Yeah. And then so you said you just retired.
I did.
6 weeks ago.
I did.
From practice.
Well, end of December. Last day of December.
Okay.
2020.
And as you transitioned out, how did you transition out? That you obviously brought in an associate, sold them equity, and then sold a little bit more? What did that look like?
For a while, we had a financial planner, Kane and Waters, was something that they used a lot. It began to when I sold 1/3 of my practice, that first segment, I sold it to my partner who was working with me. And that was centered around the business structure that Kane and Waters suggested. And it worked fairly well. I think there's some problems with their contract. I think Fortune does a better job because the subsequent sale of that portion and then the other 2/3, actually, then I sold another 1/6 to get us to 50%. And then finally, I sold the last segment of 50% about 2.5, 3 years ago. Okay. But the value of my practice never changed from the first sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a problem because the value of my practice went up significantly, so that the last half of the purchase of my practice should have given me a lot more money than I did get. And I don't think the structure that Kane Waters gave me really fit as well as I would like it to on the last part. Okay.
Okay. And then, so you started selling equity in your practice. You brought some dentists in to kind of take over the day-to-day part, which freed you up a little bit to make some other investments and spend some time in some other businesses. So
like OraCare, for instance.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing practice. I'm working with a medical practitioner in Portland who helps me with my dental chiropractic business. And so I've moved to that. I've also have part ownership in a company called Top in Health, which makes the dolphin pods, hypochlorous acid, and a number of other water cleaning devices for offices. And that company, both OraCare and that company, did well in the pandemic, very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you were heavily involved in the hypochloric acid component.
Yeah, I started out with, everybody was jumping on the bandwagon and rushing to market with that. There are good and bad parts to every type of product you put on the market. They've reformulated the Dolphin Pods to a lower concentration product now. It's called Dolphin Pods Plus. And I don't do as much with that company as I used to, but, it's still a very good product. Excellent product.
And so you founded Dentist Select with Bob.
Yeah.
And that was what year did you guys create that company?
2012. It started out, actually the name of the company is called ProBreath MD LLC. That's the actual corporate name, and the assumed names are Dentist Select and now OraCare products.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And then you use, if I'm not mistaken, when you were looking for seed money to kind of build the inventory and do all that kind of stuff, was that, I think the Platinum Circle was a component of that, or no?
Yeah. So when I went down to the Breakers and did that lecture on the wound healing properties of chlorine dioxide, okay, activated chlorine dioxide. Most people don't know what activated chlorine dioxide is. They just think that anything like Closis and TheraBreath and Oxyfresh are all chlorine dioxide. They're not. They're sodium chloride. It's a precursor to chlorine dioxide. And then when you mix it with certain catalysts and acids, it releases the chlorine dioxide, but it exists in water form in a chlorous acid state, which is actually has a higher oxidation potential. But anyway, to answer your question, I got home from that lecture, and it wasn't the next day. It was like that evening. Dr. Kalajian, Burge Kalajian from Boston, called me up and said, and I mentioned down there that we could form a company around this product. And he called me because I said, we have a good opportunity here. He called me up and said, let's do it. So he said, I'm ready to invest. And I said, okay. And then he brought in Bob Martino, and the two of them, Bob Martino, Burge, and I, were actually co-founders of Dentist Select. And without their seed money, we wouldn't have got started. So those two gentlemen, God bless them, they are absolutely crucial to the success of this company, like I said. Then we met in Boston, we formed a company, and we started sending out circular or memorandums for investments. And many Fortune dentists invested in this company in a very generous manner. We raised, close to $1 million and got started.
And OraCare, correct me if I'm wrong on any of the details here. OraCare is the first and only, and may still be the only, use of activated chlorine dioxide in dentistry.
No, there are other ones. ProFresh has been around longer than us. ProFresh. They have you get bottles, and then you get a tablet, and you put it in the bottles, and it mixes up a bottle of chlorine dioxide, which will last you about a month. The trouble with those kinds of activated chlorine dioxide is every time you open the bottle up and use some of it after it's activated, it goes down in strength every day until, after about, 3 to 4 weeks, it's very weak to nothing. And there's no chlorine dioxide in it anymore. That's why we have OraCare, so you mix it every single time, a fresh dose. You get an optimal amount every time. But even when you mix OraCare, the amount of chlorine dioxide starts out low. It peaks at about 4 minutes to its highest concentration of chlorine dioxide. And then for the next 4 hours, it gradually decreases in concentration back to zero. So you want to use it at the right time. We recommend after 30 seconds, you get plenty of chlorine dioxide and a good taste. When it reaches 4 minutes, the taste is not so good, and the liquid turns more clear, and it's much higher concentration. I recommend that be used in the oral irrigators at that point, because then you use it at 4 minutes mix time, mix it with about 5-to-1 water, and then you irrigate with your water flosser. The nice thing about that is, and then when you irrigate, when you dilute it at 5-to-1, you still get down to about 20, 25 parts per million, which is about the same concentration that you'd have in a 30-second rinse after 30 seconds of activation. Does that make sense?
Correct. Yeah. And so the activated components, so OraCare is 2 different liquid components that you take a couple of pumps of each one.
It's a very
mixing.
It's a very difficult rinse to make. I'm telling you that other people have tried to duplicate our rinse and they were unable to do it. It's extremely difficult.
And so once you've taking a couple of pumps of both components, and as
Right.
it's mixing, that's what activates the chlorine dioxide.
Yeah.
And then when you rinse with it, it actually, why it is clinical, because it's from the studies that I've seen the studies that you guys have done, is clinically superior to anything else on the market.
It is absolutely astounding. It's the
And
best.
so what happens is,
huh? What's that?
and one of the reasons why it's so effective is when you rinse with activated chlorine dioxide, it's actually a gas in your mouth, not just a liquid. And because the gas
it actually exists. Okay, we'll get into the weeds a little bit here, but I think there are people out there that are scientific enough in your audience to get this. When you activate it in the liquid, okay, you still have a bunch of things that you're rinsing with. There's unactivated sodium chloride, okay, like closis. It's still there because there's some inactivated. There's activated chlorine dioxide, ClO2. Then there's chlorous acid, which is the liquid form of chlorine dioxide, a slightly different formula. And then there's disproportionation taking place of the chlorine dioxide into hypochlorous acid. So you have hypochlorous acid, chlorous acid, chlorine dioxide, and sodium chloride, plus the xylitol. And then there's calcium lactate, calcium carbonate in there, which in the presence of xylitol actually can deposit more calcium back into your teeth. So even though we have a pH of 4.5, I have not seen any evidence of enamel etching or enamel loss. Even acidulated phosphate fluoride that you put in the mouth is acidic, and yet it puts calcium back into your teeth. So and fluoride. So you don't necessarily go by pH alone in determining the destructiveness of a rinse. As a matter of fact, Listerine has a slightly lower pH than our rinse, and yet it was the only rinse in a study of 5 that they did on one study that showed enamel etching, but that took 17 hours to occur, and their pH was like 4.3, and it was the only one that etched the enamel. And who's going to keep a mouth rinse in your mouth for 17 hours? It's kind of, people get all upset about pH levels and with the amount. And even Tom's of Maine or Wicked Fresh has a pH of 3. People are rinsing with it all the time. People have rinsed with Listerine for years, and it's not causing enamel damage. So that's a long explanation for what you said. Yeah, we started in 2012, and yes, that's the formula. In a minor explanation of our formula for oral care. Okay.
And some of the benefits are it kills a larger percentage of bacteria, viruses, VOCs.
Yeah, we've just completed 2 studies on viruses. One was on coronavirus 229E, which is a SARS-CoV-2 surrogate that they used long before they allowed us to even experiment on SARS-CoV-2. We did 2 studies, one on coronavirus 229E, and it killed 99.99% of that virus in 30 seconds. No, it was 60 seconds. And it had absolutely zero toxicity on human lung fibroblasts. So they did a toxicity study at the same time. That's a very good news. Now that's what you call a therapeutic index. A therapeutic index is the bad side effects and the good part of a compound. The wider that is the greater therapeutic index. OraCare has one of the largest therapeutic indexes of any rinse I've ever seen. It's absolutely astounding how little toxicity it has. The other one we did on SARS-CoV-2, we had a 99.96% kill rate at 30 seconds, which is our recommended rinse time. And again, it kills those viruses even better than ozone does. And I'm a big proponent of ozone use in dental offices as well. But we don't sell any ozone products. They're too cumbersome. Usually have to make them with a machine, and people just don't want to do that.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing the studies come out, and without I don't want to get into the weeds with this because it's probably a little bit controversial and political in nature. But I remember when Bob had posted something on Facebook about how OraCare's effectiveness against COVID, Facebook took it down.
Yeah, they've been going after all the companies who say anything, even if you have a valid study in an in vitro study, which both of these were, no matter what, the FDA is going to make you take it down unless you have, I mean, even if you have clinical studies in vivo, it's amazing how ruthless they are about you not putting that stuff on your website. So we're just saying, fine. We can send it to people privately, and I can talk about my experiences on my own, and I can send the studies to anybody I want to. We just can't put it on the website. You know?
Okay, and as if being a very successful private practicing dentist, growing a practice and becoming the largest provider of dental services in your community, creating OraCare. One of the most clinical, if not the most clinically advanced brands on the market. Yeah. You recently took your passion, went in another direction, and you've gotten into sleep and chiropractic, and really have tried to help people address the sleep apnea issues.
Yeah, here's I'll just tell you a little story, John. I have a friend in Florida. Okay, I'm sending him. Matter of fact, I just packaged up. I'm sending him out one of these night owls here. This is a night owl. Okay. Night owl. That's a sleep study right there. That's a sleep study. And this is the actual sleep study right there. See that? That goes on one finger. You tape it on. I'll show you that. Just tape it on the finger. And there you go. Sleep study. One finger. Okay. And that is an FDA approved sleep study right there. Okay. $99, and it's actually disposable. You can do 12 nights of sleep studies with this. 12 nights. So if you did a sleep study on somebody, and let's say you did a 2-night study, it can be read by Dr. Zelk, our sleep specialist here, who is double board certified in sleep medicine. And he believes in dentist and dental oral appliances. By the way, we're teaching that too. But what I'm saying to you is that the last estimates I saw, there are 54 to 70 million people walking around with obstructive sleep apnea, and they're not being treated. So let me finish my story. My friend in Florida, Louis, is down there. He's a physical therapist. 25 years ago, he had his uvula cut with a laser by the ENT here in town because he had sleep apnea. We know those last maybe 2-3 years to give people results. They're not very effective. But now he's down there, and he's just recently been diagnosed with excessive sleep and excessive sleepiness, and he's having panic attacks. He lives in Florida now. And I said, Louis, what are you doing about that? He said, I'm seeing a pulmonologist. I said, well, did you do a sleep study? Oh, no. He says he doesn't think I have a sleep apnea issue. I said, are you kidding? You have a history of sleep apnea. You're way overweight. You have high blood pressure, and now you're suffering from, panic attacks. All of them are signs of sleep apnea. And this guy is not recommending a sleep study. I said, Louis, I'll send you one. So I'm sending him one today. Okay. He said, okay. I said, I'm so angry. Let's put it this way. I'm upset. 54 to 70 million people walking around with sleep apnea. About 20% of your dentist population in your practices are obstructive sleep apnea, and we're not getting them done. And I'll tell you what, the ADA has recommended in 2017 that all dentists screen for sleep apnea, sleep disorders. So you don't have to treat it, but you have to screen everybody, children, adults, anybody.
That's a great
move. If you're not doing it, you're going to be liable because the lawyers are sharpening their pencils and they're going to come after us.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when the ADA recommended quite a few years ago that you do an oral cancer exam.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine not doing that now.
Right.
Imagine that. I'll tell you what, it's just unheard of. You got to do this now. When the ADA make a recommendation, they go, that's a recommendation. It becomes a mandate, period. That's all there is to it. And if you're not doing it on every patient and at least once a year, you're liable. And so, but
you recently did a webinar on that, correct?
Did I do a webinar? Yeah, I did a webinar on that.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about
that's all recorded. I got that recorded with Dr. Zelk.
Is it on? Can they find that on YouTube?
Yeah, I can get it for you. I'll get you the link. I don't have it, right in front of me. I'm sorry, but if you're able to send me like the recording or something like that, would it be okay if I put that up on my YouTube? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, I'll do that. Remind me in an email when we're done.
Sure.
So here we are, 70 million people. Now, there was a Wisconsin study, John, done about 5 years ago, where these researchers did research on actual people with sleep apnea. Okay. Now, this doesn't matter what this research was. It doesn't matter. But then they dismissed them because they had tested these people and found them themselves. Okay. So they dismissed them back to their physicians. And 10 years later, more than 90% of them had not yet been asked or diagnosed for sleep apnea by their primary care physician. Mm-hmm. Now imagine that. They're treating for heart disease, and they're treating for stroke, and they're treating for cancer, they're treating for all kinds of these comorbidities of sleep apnea, and they're not getting at the bulk of the problem. And my friend in Florida is an example. He's going to a pulmonologist, for crying out loud, and the pulmonologist is telling him, "Oh, I don't think you have sleep apnea." Well, just do the test. It's so simple. And they're so inexpensive. I developed an online course or a place to buy these. And by the way, John, 3 states used to have restrictions for dentists to order sleep studies. Okay, 3 of them. Now there's 7. So this problem is getting worse. The American Board of Sleep Medicine is trying to restrict dentists from ordering sleep appliance or sleep studies. I think it's utterly ridiculous. Not only are they not diagnosing it in the medical community, but they're treating all the comorbidities and people are dying. Yeah. Why would you not do that?
That's so disappointing to me because I have sleep apnea.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. You told me that before, didn't you, John?
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that disappoints me the most because it wasn't my chiropractor, it wasn't my dentist, it wasn't my optometrist, it wasn't my primary care physician.
Right.
Ever recommended that I even consider a sleep study. It was my bodybuilding coach. He's like, "Have you ever considered getting tested for sleep apnea? I think you have sleep apnea." I'm like, "Well, let me find out." And sure enough, I had severe obstructive sleep apnea.
Severe. Are you using a CPAP, John, or what are you using?
I'm using a CPAP, but I'm non-compliant with it because I can't make myself sleep with it.
Okay, so have you done something else?
I'm finishing a clear correct case that I'm in. Yeah. And then when I finish that case, I'm going to get an oral appliance.
Now, there's a man in Boston, and they're teaching, and also in Portland, they're teaching the use of Invisalign or clear correct to widen arches.
Yeah, right.
And I think, did you widen your arch?
No, I want to talk about that too, though, because I've got a few clients that are doing airway.
You can do airway orthodontics, John, and it would be good if they broadened your arch for your tongue space. Okay, and there are ways to do that. It takes a little different program in Invisalign to do that, but you can widen the arches and improve airway, and that's not going to maybe be the whole solution. And then there are things you can do as well, like EPAP therapy. Okay, now this is what Dr. Zelk has promoted for quite a while, and these go in the nose, and they have a one-way valve. So when you breathe in, the air goes in normally. When you breathe out, there's this partial collapse or closing of that. So it creates what is called a pressure in the whole airway system, like a CPAP would do. And so it's called expiratory positive airway pressure. Okay. And it works like a CPAP in opening the airway. We also have a new machine that Dr. Zelk and I just introduced last week called the INAP, which is a tongue suction device that fits by a little tube in the mouth, goes on top of the tongue, and it pulls the soft palate forward and the tongue forward and up. So it opens the airway just like a CPAP does, with one tube sticking out of your mouth, and a small suction goes into a little container about this big called INAP. We sell all these products on my site now. So this sleep study is sold on my site, and also the EPAPs and a number of other things that can help people with severe sleep apnea and maybe help overcome this CPAP intolerance that you have, John.
So I can go to, because this is what
sleepbalanceacademy.com.
Sleepbalanceacademy.com.
Yeah, all these products.
I'm going to go on there after we chat, and I'm going to buy both of those products, the at-home sleep test.
Okay.
And when I put that on my finger and I sleep for 12 days, where does the data go? Does that go to Dr. Zell? Because he is
goes to an app on your phone.
Okay.
And the phone app, it's called a Night Owl. And,
okay.
And then that, so like each of your dentists could get an account. And when they give these to their patients, the patient goes home, they do the study, and then the data is uploaded to your portal, and the dentist can look at your data off their machine or off their phone. For crying out loud, it's so simple. And then you can get a diagnosis. Now, you don't get a diagnosis from a doctor yet with this. So let's say the data comes back and you have an AHI of 2. Well, you may not say, okay, I don't want this read by a physician. Why go through the expense? I don't need a diagnosis or a physician's prescription, but we offer that. So let's say you do need that. Then you can also subscribe to go online and order a telemedicine consult to get this diagnosed. I'm having a patient do that today.
Okay.
Matter of fact, as we're speaking, okay, it's happening. But so there are lots of opportunities on the site. You can actually order a sleep study, a traditional sleep study on the site too. You know, a regular sleep study like this one, okay, where you have the belts and stuff. These are sent right to your home. We've got one called an Aries that goes on your head. And for $330, you'll get all the data collection and the doctor's diagnosis and reading of that program. You still have to get a doctor to do a telemedicine call if you want a prescription, though. And there's about another $95 attached to that. But still, at $330 or let's say it's $425 for everything, that's a very inexpensive thing. Most deductibles on insurance are way over that. So this is a cash program only. There's no insurance involved with these things that I'm offering, okay? Unless they want to submit it themselves.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that got me really interested in it is I remember doing a search, and I was looking for what are the most common, like, I call them diseases, but they wouldn't be classified by the CDC as a disease. I'm referring to dis-ease, right? Stress is a dis-ease.
Yes. Right.
Anxiety is a dis-ease. And I looked at the most common lists that people experience, and it was almost a mirror image of the most common side effects of sleep apnea. You know, so there's a ton, and I just assumed, like most people do, is I was like, oh, well, I guess it's normal to drink 4 cups of coffee a day, 5 cups of coffee. I guess it's normal to get tired in the afternoon.
Right.
I guess it's normal to, fall asleep or almost fall asleep driving down the road. Right. I was like, everybody deals with this. It's just because I work a lot. And the reality is that I had, undiagnosed, untreated sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And so the problem is if you go to the physician and you say, hey, here are my symptoms, the next step for them is not, and I'm not saying all of them, but a large percentage of them, the next step is not, hey, let's get you tested for sleep apnea. The next step is, here, let me give you a prescription for your anxiety.
That's right. Exactly.
And I don't know if I don't want to speculate, but I don't know if that's because the money that is involved in pharmaceuticals influences that decision.
Well, let's put it this way. Yeah. Physicians get 15 minutes of sleep medicine in medical school. Dentists get 0. chiropractors get 0. And by the way, we're teaching chiropractors, and I only will work with the chiropractors because in those 7 states, I believe they're going to be able to order the sleep studies for the dentist. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to have them take the lead in sleep medicine in the United States. It's a big vision. You might think, well, that's crazy. I'm telling you what, I'm not worried about being crazy and considered an idiot. I've been through this before. People saying I can't do something when I can. I know I can. And so I found a group that is a lot like Fortune, that are teaching chiropractors how to go beyond and are really excellent oriented. And those are the only people I'm allowing into my Sleep Balance Academy. And I'm being selective about dentists I let in now too. If they're not going to do the work, they're not going to do the coaching, then I really don't want to. I just think that they're not going to be a good fit for me. They can go to another sleep education company and do their traditional work. But we have a lot of alternative therapies, John, for people like you and for DOT drivers. By the way, chiropractors are the primary medical examiners, rapidly becoming the primary medical examiners for DOT drivers.
Yeah.
And so there's another source of patients for dentists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we think we got the solution for new audience, new patients, and new ways to treat this problem that don't require you to only get your own patients and also rely completely on insurance.
That's a big,
yeah, go ahead.
That's a big population too, because you got to think of all the FedEx drivers, all the UPS drivers, all the
airline pilots, ship captains.
I don't know if Uber drivers.
Valdez, yeah, what?
I don't know if Uber drivers and cab drivers, I don't know if they fall under DOT or not.
I don't think they're covered yet by DOT being independent, but that's I'm pretty sure that's getting challenged right now. I know it is. So I get kind of passionate about some things.
Oh, I totally understand. Yeah. What inspired my passion around sleep was the idea that, one of my goals is to build muscle. And in order to do that, I have to recover. Well, when does recovery take place? When you're asleep. Well, what if you're not sleeping? You're not recovering.
Stage 3 and 4, which have been combined now into one stage called deep sleep, is where you get your major physical restoration. And then REM sleep you need for your emotional restoration. And people often have obstructions in REM sleep. Obstructions are very common in REM sleep. And if you're not getting REM sleep, then you're going to end up with depression, anxiety, and panic attacks like my friend is doing in Florida. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, a pulmonologist of all things should know better than this. And it's irritating. And they're going to kill my friend if I don't do something about it. Okay.
Yeah, and I definitely like the idea of alternatives, because I've had my CPAP for, I don't know, a couple of years now, and I'll go 3 or 4 months and I'll try to go to sleep with it. And I'll either won't be able to fall asleep, so I'll take it off, or I'll wake up.
What's the pressure on your mask?
The number 8 comes to mind.
Just 8 centimeters of 8 centimeters of water pressure. 8.
I'd have to look at it. The number 8 comes to mind for some. And actually, I think it's lower than that.
Well, that's not very high.
I'll have to look.
Just let me know, John.
Can I see that on the machine itself?
You can ask your doctor. I think you can see it on your machine. Depends on the machine you have. By the way, dentists can dispense CPAPs, and so can chiropractors. So if you're not, let's just imagine, your dentists out there have been sending patients to the sleep clinic. They don't come back. And the reason they don't come back is because you don't have CPAPs in your practice. Well, you have that, you eliminate any excuse for them not sending them back, right?
Right.
Just something to think about. And they're not that difficult to administer, especially with Dr. Zelk and I helping people. We can make sure that you got it done right. I mean, we can handhold like no other organization does. That's why I think that our program is superior.
I talked to a client of mine, because there's a lot of, I don't know if this comes from Spear, but there are maybe some of the other, what's the word I'm looking for? Postgraduate curriculum.
Yeah.
curriculums that are available. But I've got a few clients that are pretty big in airway, and I was having a conversation with them. They're kind of explaining to me where it came from. So, like, essentially, over the years of evolution, our diets have changed significantly, and therefore our palates have changed a lot. Like, for example, most human beings don't need their, third molars, right? And so we get those cut out. But it's because our palates, because our diets have changed, our lifestyle has changed, our jaws aren't as wide as they once were, and because they're smaller now and narrower now, that's where the breathing issues start.
That's right.
And so the airway approach is to do what you said, which is to use like Clear Corrector and Invisalign to widen the arch.
Yeah. And the old method of bicuspid removal to get your teeth straight, I won't let that happen to my patients anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you do not want to make the arch smaller. And you look at me, I'm a classic example. Long face, retreated, lower face. And I had 4 bicuspid extraction, and I'm thinking about widening everything and opening up the spaces again. Because I suffer from sleep apnea. It's in the moderate form. And you can see my nose is collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not as bad as some, but this nice thing about these, as opposed to a Theravent, the Theravents are like tapes that go over this, or Provent, and they actually close the nasal. But you want something that's FDA approved, and that's FDA approved. Now, these are not easy to get used to either, John. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you think that's a panacea, it's not. There's no panaceas out there. But then there's the last thing you can do, and that's called MSE. MSE is mid-sagittal expansion. And we drive 4 mini implants into the midline area on just both sides of the suture, put a screw in there and open the suture back up, widen the upper arch. But when you use mid-suture expansion and you open that suture back up, even on adults, you actually widen the airway in the nose and in the hypopharynx, and it goes down even towards the tongue. You're actually widening the face from here to here. You're widening from here to here. You're widening the face. Okay. It's almost like a triangle, widening like that.
Right.
So as opposed to Invisalign and SARPI and MARPI, I'm not going to go into what those mean, but mid-sagittal expansion, as taught by Dr. Moon, and he's going to have a course in Boston pretty soon here. You can put in those mini implants, open up that suture, and get a permanent airway opening. Permanent. I don't know, you'd have to measure to see if you got the result with some post-sleep study. But I mean, if you have 12 sleep studies on here, you do 2, then you can titrate with this, maybe 3 or 4 times, maybe even 5 times. I don't care. 6. And then at the end, you can verify your results with this same device. After you run out of time on this thing, 100 hours of recording time, you can throw it away. $150. Okay, that's what it costs you to buy one of these from us. I can sell you 10 for less, but right now that's a great tool. And if your patients if you can't order this in your area, I might be able to find a chiropractor that can order the sleep test, or you can have your patient order it themselves at onlinehomesleepstudy.com. That's another site I developed just for patients, but dentists can use it as well. And the patient can order their own sleep study, and there's no law or rule or board oversight for that. A patient can order their own sleep study. Imagine that. Patient can do their own, but you can't order one as a dentist. So that's just the way the laws are. And if you want to do that, you can go around these rules that have been placed on you by letting the patient order their own sleep study. Okay.
And so if I understand correctly, because I've run into this with several clients, some states are easier than others in terms of what dentists can do, what dentists can't do.
Yeah.
What does that look like now? Is that changing? Is it becoming easier for dentists to?
No, it's getting worse. Like I said, there were 3 states that prohibited dentists from ordering sleep studies. Now there are 7. Okay. And I listed them I have a Facebook site called the Dental-Chiropractic Sleep Apnea Collaborative. If you want to join that, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
the Dental-Chiropractic Sleep Apnea Collaborative, and you'll be able to talk and speak with other dentists and chiropractors who are treating in sleep medicine. But I listed the 7 states. I can't remember them all. I think it's New York and Ohio. No, I can't remember.
I think Georgia's one of them, isn't it?
Georgia's one of them. Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina. All 3 of those right together. There's Delaware and New York, and I think Ohio. I can't remember all of them, but there's more states being added to the list. I can't understand it. It's just, it's silly. When we got that many people not being treated and being mistreated, that they would limit this and do this silly turf battle, which I think is all it is a turf battle. They couch it around quality of care and, oh, you might misdiagnose. And well, yeah, okay, that might happen at times, but I think dentists.
It's about money.
It's
reality is it's about money. Like
I think it's about money.
If you can't understand why the decisions that are being made, just follow who's getting paid.
Unfortunately, John, I think oftentimes you're right about that. I believe there are people out there that are genuinely concerned about quality of care, but quality care, if you're not reaching the 54 to 70 million that are being ignored, then I don't know where quality care really balances out there. It's not, in my opinion, it's not a valid argument anymore. Okay. Just not.
So if I'm in North Carolina, Delaware, New York, Georgia, Alabama, what options do I have if I want to get involved?
I think you need a sleep study. First, you got to do a screening form. We have a simple 1-page screening form. Even if you don't treat sleep apnea, you need to fill out that screening form on every patient, period. Put it in your records so that you made sure you made a recommendation. If they refuse to go to the sleep doctor, you don't treat them and you send them to a sleep doctor and they refuse, have them sign a refusal form. You need to document, protect yourself. Second thing is that if they do want to proceed and you want to give them a sleep study, a simple one, just have them go to onlinehomesleepstudy.com and order their own sleep study. You can set them down at the office at the computer and just bring up the site and have them fill it out, pay with their credit card, and the sleep study will come right to their house. That's simple. Now the dentist hasn't, and you may have to word it in a way that, if you have the option of ordering these yourselves, Mrs. Jones, if you want to. Oh yeah, I'd like to do that. Well, here, just sit down here. Now you haven't prescribed it. You haven't, ordered it. You just let the patient know about some information that you have and help them do it. Well, I can give you some help if you'd like. Yeah. And sit them down and let them fill out the form and they get the sleep study.
Or I could go to Sleep Balance Academy and I can buy 100.
You can buy these. Yeah, you can buy these. Lots of 10 if you want to or more. Another thing I recommend is called a circle ring. A circle ring is a little ring that I don't have it with me right now. It's just a little black ring that fits around this finger. And it does a pulse oximeter. And it also does a hypnogram. Let me show you one of them. I'll just show you one real quick here. This is kind of cool. I think you'll like this. So a hypnogram, here's one of my reports on myself. Okay, so there it is. Oops, I'm gonna turn off the light here a minute here. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that. So you can see my ODI is 6.2. That's above normal.
Mm-hmm.
You can see my lowest oxygen saturation is 84.5, mm-hmm. and my average 94.3 that night. Okay, and as you go down, you'll see the pulse rate, and you'll mm-hmm. see. Let me get down to the bottom here. At the bottom here, you'll see the hypnogram. Now the hypnogram, let me just get this in the right place here. There's the hypnogram. That shows you the REM sleep, the awake, and the light sleep stages. You there?
Yep.
You can see I was in REM sleep 18% of the time, and light sleep 2 hours, and the awake. Okay. Now this is called the circle ring. We sell this too. Now this doesn't qualify as a complete sleep study, but boy, you could send this out over and over again and use it over and over again. Okay. And I don't think it would interfere with your laws on ordering a sleep study. It's not a sleep study. Not.
That is, so a hypnogram. Now I know what that's called, because I use this app called Auto Sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And
it kind of tells me how long. Now the problem is, like, I'll go to bed at 10 or 9. I've started going to bed a little bit earlier, waking up a little bit earlier. I'll go to bed at 9, wake up at 5. So I was in bed for 8 hours, but only got 6 hours and 52 minutes of sleep.
Yeah.
3 hours and 19 minutes of quality sleep and 30 minutes of deep sleep. Right. And so, but the settings in here, what I don't know what to do, the settings, I can change the settings based on what my nocturnal dip is.
Yeah.
So in other words, it knows that I'm in deep sleep because my beats per minute drop to a certain point.
Yeah.
But I don't know
they
what
base it on certain things. It might not be as accurate as it should be. Is that an FDA approved device, John?
It's I have no idea. It's called Auto Sleep. I can't remember who recommended this to me.
I think that the circle ring is an FDA approved, and also you don't have oxygen desaturation on there, do you, John? It doesn't measure oxygen levels.
I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's okay, not a bad thing, but I think you want something that's FDA approved and is more accurate. The circle ring is the way to go, in my opinion, and we carry that on our site as well. Now, the circle ring makes it a perfect screening device. You can screen patients over and over again. They bring it back. You can even sell it to them if the patient wants to get one. Just retail it to them. But otherwise, they bring it back. You use it over and over and over again. There's no disposables, no cost to it. It was a one-time purchase. And now you can screen many, many patients and decide if they need a sleep study or not. Okay. It'll help. It's not the sole determinant, but it'll help.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, so I'm trying to figure out what the steps or the progression would be. The circle ring would indicate if I need to have the patient do a sleep test.
That's right.
The thing that you put on your finger, that is an actual sleep test.
This is actually a sleep test. Yes, that's disposable and costs a little more because it doesn't last forever.
Right. So I would just maybe have a handful of the sleep rings.
Yeah.
Right.
I would have a handful. I would say a handful because you want to use those over and over again. The more people you screen, the more you'll find, and the more you can put people in the system.
Now, if I'm in Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, can I sell the sleep test, the finger sleep study?
No, I don't think you can. That would be dispensing.
But I can recommend the patient go to your website and
in order. And you can also do the circle ring. I think you'll need to check, but a pulse oximeter, that's not a sleep study. It's a screening device.
Okay. So if I'm in one of the states where there are a few more restrictions, I can give them the ring,
right?
Sleep ring.
It's called circle ring, and it's
circle ring.
It's called CIRCUL. Almost, and I've had people send things back. You misspelled that. No, it's circle. CIRCUL. Gotcha. And for me, who is a bad speller, I wouldn't have known the difference. Okay. By the way, there's other things we do. This is called a tongue stimulator, and this goes. There's a thing that fits on the bottom, and this goes in the mouth with these 4 electrodes, and it pulses different types of waves of energy through your tongue for 20 minutes a day. And it strengthens your tongue so you get actual less sleep apnea obstruction from your tongue. It changes the fibers in your tongue, the tongue fibers, the tongue muscle fibers, from fast switch to slow switch type fibers. And that's what you want in the tongue. You not necessarily in your legs, but that's what you want in your tongue. Okay. So, but if there are things we can do that help people. Okay.
Right. So if I'm one of the states with restrictions, because I have a lot of clients in Georgia, have a lot of clients in Tennessee, clients in Kentucky. We have a lot of clients in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if I'm in one of the states with restrictions, then I could do the circle ring, determine if the patient needs a sleep test. If they do, based on that evidence, I could then send them to a sleep specialist to get a sleep study, or I could send them to your site to buy the $99 home sleep test.
As long as maybe you don't say you sent them there. You have to be careful about the language you use with your restrictions. And I can't tell you how you would do that. You may say, Mrs. Jones, there are places where you can order these tests on your own. I can't really prescribe or direct you to that. But if you'd like to know where those sites are, here's one right here.
Here is an op. There you go. Okay.
And I can set you down, help you with the fill out of that order if you want to, or have one of your staff members do it.
Right.
But you will probably need to check to see that you're in compliance with the laws of your state. I don't want anybody to violate their practice acts.
Okay. So, but if I'm in Kentucky, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, South Carolina, I could go to your site, purchase the home sleep test. I could then resell those to my patients.
I don't know that you can sell these in those states.
Okay.
No, I don't think you can. I would think that would violate the Practice Act.
Okay. I could in those states.
The patient can order this on the online home sleep study site if they want to. Yeah.
But I could buy the full sleep study, the one with the connections and all that stuff. Yeah. And I could rent that, or not rent it, but I could allow patients to check it out.
Yeah.
And they would check it out, go sleep with it for a few nights and bring it back.
Yeah.
And now we have a sleep study.
Yeah. Ordinarily we order that, they can order that online. It sits on top of the head. The one I'm recommending now is called Aries. I like the Aries a lot. And that one goes, you get a 2-night sleep study. It'll be mailed to your patient, and then the patient mails it back. And then the study comes online, and I will make sure that the dentist gets a copy of that. Okay. If the patient wants me to.
Okay, very good. And then because the big opportunity here, and I look at it more from I definitely look at it from a patient care standpoint, because I think that's a huge opportunity to provide a higher quality of care to patients in treating something that's going untreated. And I say that from personal experience, but also from a business perspective, it's a tremendous business opportunity, because if you've got 1,000 patients, statistically 333 of those patients suffer from sleep apnea.
Yeah.
So if you've got 333 patients, let's say that your treatment acceptance is only 50%. So that's 333 times 0.5. That means you're going to enroll 167 of those patients in an oral appliance. Right. And the average reimbursement from medical insurance across the country is about $2,500.
Yeah.
So 167 times $2,500, you just added $417,500 of revenue to your practice.
Yeah.
Divided by 12, that's $35,000 a month. So it's a significant area of opportunity from a business standpoint.
I agree.
So what about the medical component, the medical insurance component? Because I know that's tricky for a lot of people. Yeah. I've got a company, I'm actually having him back on in a couple of weeks, I think on May 3rd, who Tahiti with Code Crossover Dental. And they actually do the medical insurance filing on behalf or for the practice. I've also seen some stuff from Dr. Chris Ferrugia where they teach the practice how to file medical insurance. One of the questions I get oftentimes is, at what point does it make sense for us to file it ourselves or have a third party do it? And in my opinion, there is a law of diminishing returns at some point. I think it makes more sense to have a third party do it unless you're doing a lot of it. And if you're doing a lot of it, it's probably more cost effective for you to have a trained professional in your practice to do it. What's your thoughts there?
I think I agree with you, John. I use Kendra Sellers, and she's been trained by Dr. Ferrugia. I think Dr. Ferrugia is really wonderful. I think Kendra is great. Kendra won't do the billing for you, but she can train your offices. So if some people are interested, she's very good at that. Okay. There are medical billing companies, more than one out there. I think that you should. I don't know. Just give a number of them. there's many of them out there that do a good job, and they're getting better, I think. But there are companies out there that take shortcuts. You got to be careful about what they do and say, because they may do things that are violation of ethics and laws.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want, and you're still liable for what they do in billing in your name. So you got to be careful about that. I'm not going to name companies right now because I want to make sure that you're just aware that you just don't do everything these billing companies tell you to do.
Right.
And
practice owner is ultimately responsible.
You're absolutely responsible. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. And sleep is really only one facet of how medical insurance can benefit your practice.
That's right.
You know, anything that's trauma related, a lot of your diagnostics, there's a lot of stuff that dentists do that can be filed under medical insurance, and you will receive a much higher reimbursement for medical insurance than you do dental insurance.
That's such a true statement, John. There's a lot of things you can bill. Just think, for instance, xerostomia, dry mouth from drugs or radiation. You might get all of their dentistry covered.
Mm-hmm.
By medical, because that's a medical condition. Trauma is a big one. Trauma is a very big one. And there are other things that can happen. As a matter of fact, I had a $75,000 bill paid by medical for an implant case that I did. I did a lot of bone grafting. I took out all the teeth. I put in quite a few implants, prosthetics. When you have bone hypoplasia or a lack of bone, that's a medical condition. It has to be severe enough to be able to be covered by medical. These are things that Kendra taught me and has done a wonderful job with. Okay.
Very good.
Good.
Very good. So the contact forums, you mentioned several websites there. We've got, can you run through those for us really quick? So everybody, in case everybody needs one last chance to write them down.
Contact websites, you mean?
Yeah, your websites.
Okay, well, the one is sleepbalanceacademy.com.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep Balance Academy. That's for people, dentists and chiropractors and functional medicine people that want to get trained in sleep apnea, or they want coaching and hand holding. We have a 4-month program for that. Then there's the online homesleepstudy.com, in which dentists and patients can order sleep studies. So we have a place to send patients that just isn't a dental site. Okay. And I really think those are the two that I would most recommend. I don't want to get, and then if you're on a Facebook site, the Dental-Chiropractic Collaborative is a place you can go. And it's free to join. There are some questions. Like I said, I'm not letting everybody into these sites. I do want to make sure that they're contextually trained like Fortune does, or like the Black Diamond Club does with chiropractors. Okay.
Facebook was the Dental
Chiropractic Sleep Apnea Collaborative. I would think if you just put at Dental Chiro, that'll get you there. Yeah, I think that's how it's done. I can't remember I hope that's correct. You can look it up. My name, Richard D. Downs, DDS, FAGD, which is a website. A Facebook site. That would also get you to me.
So what's next for you? You've done the private practice. You've done oral care and dentist select. You've done dental sleep collaborative and sleep medicine, medical billing.
I tell you what I'm ultimately up to, John. Ultimately, I'm up to I'm making a clinic in Haiti called the Haiti International Dental Institute. And I went there 2 years ago. We surveyed the land. We have the land. And ultimately, that's what my ultimate goal is. I'm going to use oral care, Toppin Health, and this Dental Chiropractic Sleep Apnea Collaborative venture to help fund that new clinic. So if you're interested in that, let me know. That charitable what's going to happen with that, John, is that we're going to have what's called destination education for implantology.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go to Cap-Haïtien. They'll go to this really modern new clinic, and they will be able to learn live implant treatment on patients who need care. So you're doing a charity, but you're paying a fee to get the training. So it should be a self-funding clinic that sustains itself. Okay, that's what I'm doing.
That's pretty awesome.
We're going to make a lab there,
mm-hmm.
and it's on Christian land. It's on an NGO called Hosien Ministries. So it can't be accessed by the government, this corrupt government. They are pretty much autonomous, and I think we figured out a way to get around the corruption there. Okay, and
Very
help
good.
people. That's what I'm doing. Haiti International Dental Institute. There's a Facebook site for that too.
Is there? I have to look that up. That seems to be the common thing of pretty much everything that I've heard come out of your mouth during our time together today, and just obviously your previous conversations. It never seems to be about making more money.
No, not
everything
really.
seems to be. It seems the driving factor behind everything that you've done and everything that you're doing is just providing a better service to people, serving people. And helping people.
We're only a short time on this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it count for God. That's the way I
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So I've had you on here for quite a while now.
Thank you.
I am grateful for you taking the time to spend with me today. I am very grateful of the education that you've provided me.
That's perfect. I so enjoy talking to you and Reagan. You're just the people in Fortune are the salt of the earth. They are just absolutely wonderful. What a family. It's great.
Well, I guess that's a reputation that I will make certain that we live very hard. We try very hard to live up to.
Yeah. Thank you. I know that.
Thank you for your time. I'm sure everyone listening is very appreciative of your time as well today. Dr. Rick Downs. And if anybody has questions for you, if they just want to reach out to you and maybe email you and ask a question, would that be okay?
Yeah. And
then what email address would they use?
They could use rdowns at dentistselect.net. That would be easy. Dentistselect.net, not .com, .net. rdowns at dentistselect.net. Okay.
Very good. Well, sir, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, John. God bless you.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.